Funeral prayers. 555. It is a collective obligation, fard al-kifaya, for Muslims to perform ablution and face the QIBLA, so that the funeral prayer may be performed for a Muslim deceased who has been washed and prepared, placed facing forward. 556. The condition for the funeral prayer is intention. With this intention, the gender of the deceased, whether male or female, girl or boy, is determined. The person acting as the imam begins the prayer by intending to perform the funeral prayer for the deceased present and to make supplication for that deceased, seeking the pleasure of Allah the Exalted. It is not necessary for the imam to intend to lead the prayer, whether there are women among the congregation or not. Each member of the congregation also intends to perform the funeral prayer for the sake of Allah, to make supplication for the deceased, and to follow the imam. If the deceased is a man, the prayer is intended for this man. If a woman, for this woman. The same applies for children. If a member of the congregation does not know whether the deceased is a man or a woman, or whether they are an adult or a child, they should intend for the deceased over whom the imam will lead the prayer, to pray along with the imam and to make supplication. 557. The pillars of the funeral prayer are standing qiyam and the takbir. The Sunnah acts include praising and glorifying Allah, sending blessings and peace upon the Prophet, and making supplication both for the deceased and for other Muslims. Some argue that prayer is a pillar. The prayer is performed as follows. The congregation forms a row facing the funeral and the QIBLA. An intention is made. The imam joins his hands as in regular prayer. The congregation also joins their hands while silently reciting the takbir. This takbir is, in a sense, a part of the prayer, and in another sense, a prerequisite. Following this takbir, both the imam and the congregation recite the subhanak. They also a DD, Vesel Sanaki. Finally, without raising their hands, the imam recites Allahu Akbar aloud. The congregation also recites the takbir quietly without raising their hands. After this, all recite the Allahum Salli and Allahum Barik prayers silently. The takbir, Allahu Akbar, is recited again in the same manner. This time, silent prayers are offered for the deceased and other believers. After this prayer, Allahu Akbar is sighed again to recite the takbir, and then the imam greets first to the right, then to the left aloud, while the congregation greets quietly. In this way, the prayer is completed. With this obligatory salutation, the intention is made to greet the deceased, the congregation, and the imam. According to some, the intention is not made for the deceased in this salutation. Reciting Surah al-Fatiha in the funeral prayer is a pillar of the prayer according to the Shafi school. Reciting it after the first takbir is more virtuous. For the Hanbalis, this is also a pillar. Reciting it after the first takbir is obligatory. According to the Malikis, reciting it is disliked, makruh, by way of tanzih. 558. It has been reported that the following supplication is recited during the funeral prayer for a man. O Allah, forgive our living and our dead, those present and those absent, the men and the women, the young and the old. O Allah, whoever you keep alive among us, keep him alive in Islam, and whoever you take in death from among us, take him in faith, and grant this deceased one peace, comfort, forgiveness, and your pleasure. O Allah, if he was righteous, increase his righteousness. And if he was a sinner, overlook his sins and grant him security, glad tidings, honor, and nearness. By your mercy, O most merciful of the merciful. Meaning, O Allah, forgive our living, our dead, those among us, those absent, our men and women, our children and our elders. O Allah, let those you keep alive among us live according to Islam, and let those you take from us die with faith. Especially for this deceased, grantees, comfort, forgiveness, and your pleasure. O Allah, if this deceased was among the righteous, those who have done good deeds, increase their reward. If he is a sinner, forgive him, grant him security, joy, and goodness. and bring him close to your mercy. O most merciful of the merciful. 559. If the deceased is a boy or originally insane, after the phrase and whoever you take from us, take him in faith, in the above prayer, the following is recited. Allahumma ja'ahu lina faretin. O Allah, make him a source of reward and honor for us. O Allah, make him an intercessor and a source of intercession for us. Meaning, O Allah, make him for us a source of reward sent ahead. Prepare him for us and make him for use an intercessor whose intercession is accepted. 560. If the deceased is not a man, the pronouns in the prayer are changed to feminine pronouns as follows. And grant this deceased one mercy, comfort, forgiveness, and paradise. Allahum. If she was righteous, increase her righteousness. And if she was wrongdoing, forgive her and grant her security. Grant use her intercession, an intercession that brings salvation. 561. Those who do not know the traditional du'as recited during the funeral prayer may recite other appropriate du'as that come easily to them. Among these, reciting the verse, Rabbina Atina Fidunya Hasnatan, is sufficient. They may also pray as follows. Allahumma mafia e leo vel lao meyadia vel leo sairio. Mumianian vel mamik. Meaning, O God, forgive me, this deceased, and all other believing men and women. 562. The takbirs, which constitute the essential pillars of the funeral prayer, are 3 in number as described. With the first takbir, they have all performed 4 takbirs. If the imam were to recite a 5th takbir, the congregation would not follow him. 563. The presence of a congregation is not a requirement for the funeral prayer. This obligation is fulfilled even if the funeral prayer is performed by a single man or a single woman. When the funeral prayer is performed in congregation, those most entitled to be the imam are the administrators with the broadest authority. Next in line is the imam who leads the Friday prayer. Next is the neighborhood or tribal imam who is of good character. After that come those who are the legal guardians of the deceased according to the order of inheritance. 564. If it is a guardian's turn to lead the prayer, he may grant permission to others to lead the prayer. No one other than those of higher rank may lead the prayer without the guardian's permission. If he chooses to do sulfur monoxide, the imam may perform the prayer again and may also lead another congregation. However, no one else may lead it again. And once one of the guardians of equal rank leads, the prayer OR grants permission for it to be a lead. The other's nitrogen monoxide longer have the authority to do so, because the right of guardianship has been established separately for each of them, in full and equal measure. If a deceased woman has nitrogen monoxide guardian, her husband, then her neighbors, have the right to lead her funeral prayer. According to a narration from Imam Azam N., the opinion of Abu Yusuf in the duty of leading the funeral prayer for the deceased, the guardian takes precedence over everyone else. Imam Shafi's opinion is also similar to that of Imam Abu Yusuf. 565. If only women are to perform the funeral prayer for a deceased person, this is permissible and fulfills the obligation. It is also permissible for women to perform the funeral prayer in congregation. However, IT is preferable for them to perform IT individually. 566. If several funerals are gathered together, IT is better to perform their prayers separately. Whichever one was brought first, its prayer is performed first. If they have all been brought together, the most virtuous one is placed in front. However, a single prayer suffices for all of them. When the prayers are performed collectively in this manner, the male deceased is placed in front of the imam. The other departed are also arranged in rows or in a line, with their chests facing the imam. Specifically, first the men, then the boys, then the women, and finally the girls are placed facing the imam. 567. The imam stands at the level of the deceased's chest. The congregation forms at least 3 rows. In the funeral prayer, the most meritorious row is the one at the back. 568. If the deceased is placed on the musalla, the area prepared for prayer, with the head facing the imam's left side. The prayer is valid, but a sin has been committed. 569. Anyone who arrives after the funeral prayer has begun and joins the congregation immediately recites the takbir and recites the remaining takbirs one after another without reciting the supplication, thus completing the takbirs and giving the salam before the funeral is lifted from the musalla. Similarly, anyone who joins the congregation after the imam's fourth takbir immediately recites the takbir to follow the imam, and after the imam's salam makes up the three remaining takbirs. This is the fatwa. According to another opinion, one must wait for the imam to recite the takbir. One may not join the congregation until the imam has recited IT 570. Unless there is a valid excuse, such as heavy rain, it is disliked, makruh, to bring the funeral into the mosque and perform the funeral prayer there. If the funeral is placed at the front of the mosque, with part of the congregation standing with the funeral and part inside the mosque, and the rows are adjacent, the prayer to be performed is not disliked. This is also the custom in many large mosques. Masjid al-Haram is an exception to this. Any kind of prayer may be performed. Within IT is also not considered appropriate to perform the funeral prayer at the Taji cemetery. 571. During the funeral prayer, women form rows behind the men. For the best row for women is the one at the very back. However, if a woman stands next to a man to perform the funeral prayer, her prayer is not invalidated, because this prayer is not a mandatory. Ruku and sujud including. Prayer. 572. If the QIBLA direction is determined and prayer is performed accordingly, but an error is later discovered, the prayer is to be repeated. However, if it is discovered that the congregation was without a bdest, the prayer is not repeated. For when the imam's prayer is valid, this fulfills the obligation of the funeral prayer. 573. It is disliked, makruh, to perform the funeral prayer at the times of sunrise, sunset, and as the sun approaches its zenith. However, if it is performed at these times, it does not need to be repeated. Burying the dead during these times is not disliked. 574. It is not permissible to perform the funeral prayer for a deceased person who is not present, absent. This is because it results in a deviation from the QIBLA direction. If the deceased is on the east side, when standing facing the QIBLA for prayer, the deceased remains behind or to the left. If one turns toward the deceased, one deviates from the QIBLA. According to the Maliki school, the presence of the deceased is a condition. However, according to the Shafi school, prayer may be performed for an absent person. This is because our Prophet performed the funeral prayer for the negus in this manner. In response to this, it is said that this was a matter specific to the Prophet. Therefore, it pertains to situations where certain special circumstances may apply. According to the Hanbali school, the funeral prayer may be performed for a deceased person, even if more than a month has passed. 575. If there is a strong belief that a body buried without the funeral prayer being performed, and with earth already thrown over it, has not yet decomposed, the funeral prayer is performed over the grave to fulfill the deceased's rites. This is done even if the body was buried without being washed. However, if there is a strong suspicion that the body has decomposed and disintegrated, the prayer is nitrogen monoxide longer performed. The opinion that is stronger regarding whether the body has decomposed or not is taken as the basis. The obligatory nature of the funeral prayer is established by consensus. Evidence for this consensus is the verses, and pray for them equals pray over Muslim funerals and the practice of the Prophet Pbuh. Aliul Ediv, one of the scholars of Maliki jurisprudence, states in his commentary, some scholars of jurisprudence have doubts regarding whether the funeral prayer was legitimately established in Mecca or in Medina. If one looks at the literal meaning of some hadith, it appears that it was permitted in Medina. It is narrated that the Prophet Pbuh visited the grave of Bara bin Mur in Medina and performed the first funeral prayer over him. 576. A child known to have been born alive, or whose body is mostly intact, is washed and the funeral prayer is performed. If this is not the case, the body is only washed and no funeral prayer is performed. 577. If a deceased person is to be wrapped in a shroud without having been washed, or if only one part of the body was washed by mistake, the shroud is open and the washing is completed. If prayer has already been performed over it, the prayer is repeated. The same ruling applies if the body has been placed in the grave, but earth has not yet been thrown over it. However, if soil has already been placed on the grave, it is now forbidden to exhume the body. The obligation to wash the body is no longer required. Instead, prayer is performed again over the grave. This is the accepted opinion. Even if the body is placed in the grave without a shroud, the grave is nitrogen monoxide longer open. 578. Prayer is performed for one who has committed suicide, killed himself. According to Imam Abu Yusuf, prayer is not performed for a suicide victim unless the suicide was done by mistake or due to severe pain. 579. The funeral prayer is not performed for one who intentionally and unjustly kills his mother or father. 580. Bandits and highwaymen killed in battle are not washed, and the funeral prayer is not performed for them. However, if they are killed after being neutralized, they are washed and prayers are performed for them. The funerals of those killed by stoning, a punishment by stoning, or through retaliation are also washed, and prayer is performed over them. 581. Just as the funeral prayer cannot be performed for a person killed because they apostatize, having abandoned Islam, nor is their body buried in an Islamic cemetery or in the cemetery of the religion to which they returned. Rather, they are buried in a pit dug in an EMPTY field. 582. If a woman from the people of the book who was present at a Muslim's wedding dies while pregnant, no funeral prayer is performed for her. There is consensus on this. As for her grave, it is prudent to prepare a separate grave for her. According to one opinion, she is buried in an Islamic cemetery in accordance with the child's status. According to another opinion, since the child still has a part of the mother's lineage, and the mother is not bound to the child is buried in a cemetery belonging to their own community. 583. If the bodies of Muslims and non-Muslims are found mixed together, the following applies. If there is a specific sign or indication specific to Muslims, the procedure is carried out accordingly. If nitrogen monoxide such mark is found, all air washed, and prayer is performed over all of them with the intention of doing so for Muslims. However, if non-Muslims are in the majority, they are simply washed, and prayer is not performed over any of them. This is because the ruling applies to the majority when their numbers are equal. According to one opinion, prayer is performed over them. According to another opinion, it is not. As for their burial, this is also a matter of disagreement. According to one tradition, they are buried in a separate cemetery. Their graves are not raised. They are made flat. 584. If an unidentified person is found dead in Islamic territory, the following is considered. If there is a mark on their body, the procedure is carried out accordingly. If there is nitrogen monoxide mark, according to a valid opinion, the body is considered belonging to an Islamic country, washed, and funeral prayers are performed over it. Thus, a person found dead in a place not considered an Islamic country, if they have no sign indicating they are Muslim, is considered a non-Muslim and is treated according to the customs of the place where they were found. 585. The Imam leading the funeral prayer must have reached puberty and be of sound mind. The same things that invalidate other prayers also invalidate the funeral prayer. 586. If certain sacred words referred to as the covenant are written on the forehead of the deceased, or on their bandages, or on their shroud, indicating that they remain steadfast in their faith and in their eternal covenant, It is said that one may attain the forgiveness of Almighty Allah. However, the practice is not accepted due to the concern that blessed words such as the kalima tawhid might remain in the grave, be trampled upon over time, or remain among the fluids flowing from the deceased. After the deceased has been washed, before being shrouded, it is considered more appropriate to write Bismillahirrahmanir on the forehead using only the index finger rather than ink, and La ilaha illallah on the chest. 587. Accompanying the funeral procession following it too. The grave is a sunnah. There is great reward in this. In fact, accompanying a funeral of a relative, neighbor, or a person known for their good character is more meritorious than voluntary worship. Otherwise, voluntary worship is more meritorious. 588. It is good to take prepared funerals to their graves as soon as possible. It is disliked, makruh, to delay a prepared funeral until after Friday prayer on Friday morning in order to have a larger congregation. However, this may be done out of fear of missing the Friday prayer for a funeral that is ready during the time of the Eid prayer. The funeral prayer is performed after the Eid prayer but before the sermon. 589. The sunnah regarding the carrying of a funeral procession is for 4 people to carry the body from all 4 sides. It is recommended to carry the body for about 10 steps from each side, making a total of 40 steps. There is great reward in this. Specifically, a Muslim first takes the deceased onto his right shoulder from the front, then onto his right shoulder from the back. Then he takes it onto his left shoulder from the front, and finally onto his left shoulder from the back. In this way, they take 10 steps in each direction. This is the proper way. 590. Carrying the dead on one's shoulders all the way to their graves is the greatest sign of respect and honor shown toward them. Such an act is a behavior that demonstrates the honor and value of humanity. Carrying a person like a piece of luggage all the way to the gate of the afterlife may wound the sensitive heart of a human being. For this reason, unless absolutely necessary, carrying the funeral procession from behind or loading it onto an animal or vehicle is disliked. The funeral procession should be carried quickly on the shoulders without causing shaking. It is better to carry a child's coffin on one's hands than to load it onto an animal. There is no objection to a single person carrying a child's body on their hands, whether on foot or mounted. 591. Those following the funeral procession should walk behind the body. This is the more meritorious practice. However, there is nitrogen monoxide dislike in walking ahead of it. Following the funeral procession on foot is more meritorious than following it on a mount. Those on horseback should walk behind the procession so as not to inconvenience the congregation. They may also walk from a considerable distance behind. 592. Those who follow the funeral procession should reflect on the end of life and conduct themselves with humility. This is what is appropriate. It is not proper for them to laugh, talk, or engage in worldly conversation. In fact, even raising one's voice while reciting zikr or reading the Quran is strongly disliked. 593. Following funerals, kezi, amidst incense scents, noise, and moans is disliked. Accompanying the funeral procession should prevent such things. However, if they cannot do so, they should not turn back. According to the Hanbalis, if there is something unpleasant present with the funeral procession and the follower is unable to prevent it becomes forbidden, haram, to follow such a funeral procession. For this implies, accepting the sign. 594. There is nitrogen monoxide harm in weeping with tears for the funeral or feeling sadness and grief in one's heart, provided that nitrogen monoxide unwarranted words are spoken, crying out loud at a funeral, tearing one's clothes, scratching one's face, pulling one's hair, or beating one's knees are all forbiddens. This is rebellion against Allah's decree. A deceased does not suffer torment in the grave because of the weeping of their family and relatives. But if he has made a will It takes precedence. 595 those following. The funeral procession should not return before the funeral prayer is performed. If it becomes necessary to return, permission must be obtained from the family of the deceased. This is the proper course of action. Indeed, there is nitrogen monoxide behavior more pitiful or strange than when some of the Muslims, following the funeral, perform the funeral prayer while others remain as spectators. 596. Standing up for a funeral is considered an act of imitating other nations and is therefore disliked, makruh, and prohibited. Unless there is an obstacle, one should stand up and follow the funeral procession. Raising one's hand to greet funerals, being taken to their graves is also without any legitimate basis. 597. It is strongly disliked. To Raymond Mekrouf. 4. Women to follow funerals. Therefore, they do not earn reward but rather commit a sign.